Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to my review of Warhammer 40k Mechanicus. So right off the bat, what is Mechanicus? Well, it's a turn-based strategy game where you play as the Mechanicus, essentially cyborg humans, against the Necrons, basically futuristic robot Egyptians. So during this review, I'm going to compare it to another turn-based strategy game, XCOM. Why? Mostly because a lot of the reviews for the game compared it to XCOM, which is what prompted me to buy the game since I adore XCOM. Is that fair? Honestly, no, but for reasons I'll get into later. Now, does this game have problems? Yes, a lot of them, but did I have fun playing it? And the answer to that is a definitive yes. I do not regret purchasing and playing this game, even if the majority of this review will be pointing out flaws. It's always easier to express the things you didn't enjoy than those you did, and those are also the things I prefer to talk about. But let's start with the good. So in case you weren't aware, I love the lore and aesthetics of the Warhammer 40k world. It's filled with diverse races and lots of fun units, and honestly, if they just reskin popular games with Warhammer, I'd probably buy it. Here's looking at you, Vermintide, Darktide, Total Warhammer, Dawn of War, you get the point. Here the scale is smaller when we're on a single planet facing off against a single foe, but it's still loads of fun. Choosing the Mechanicus as the focus is great because it means that our unit tech trees can express a wide variety of insane things, since our improvements are literally attributed to replacing body parts with cybernetics. Also, game-wise, the Mechanicus rarely get much love. As you progress through missions, you can uncover and unlock better weapons, better items, and even extra robotic troops to help you on missions. Unfortunately, the order you unlock these weapons and items is random and you cannot organize them in your menus. And since each item has 3 tiers, have fun searching your items one at a time looking for a particular tier. You can also upgrade how many people you can take on a mission, as well as increasing how many cognition points you can hold at a time. Cognition points are literally just action points. You get a set amount of movement per unit per turn, then can spend a cognition point to move again. Or your weapons which you attack with can cost anywhere from 0 to 5 cognition to use. In addition, you can cast buffs which cost cognition, or even get access to items which let you accumulate more cognition. Essentially, the entire game comes down to how you choose to manage this one resource. At the start, it will be extremely difficult, where you'll be rationing it like mad, but near the end, each of your tech priests will be able to generate so much cognition in a turn that they can literally attack with every weapon and cast all of their buffs in a single turn. Finally, there are canticles. These count as spells which you can unlock by completing certain requirements in-game, and you can use them each once per mission. Overall, it's a fun game. You go into tombs, explore them, then as you complete missions in each tomb, you unlock the ability to face off against the boss of said tomb. Eventually, you gain the ability to face off against the Tomb World boss, and boom, you save the universe. Does that seem simple? Well, it is, because now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of why this game should not be compared to XCOM and where its failings lie. I managed to complete every mission in the game, and it took me 34 hours on normal. I could have ended the game at around 20 hours because that's when I unlocked access to the final boss, but I wanted to finish all the quest lines first. I paid for the full game, and I dang well was going to experience the whole game. So gripes. Reading the reviews and discussions, people are quick to point out that the greatest flaw with the game is that you can easily become overpowered and it makes the game trivial. This is true. For the last quarter of the game, I was literally beating every single fight on the first turn because my units had access to all the cognition they would ever need. The final skills on tech trees can easily break the game. One lets you automatically refill your cognition bar. Another lets you cast a canticle for free. And quick gripe about that skill. The game will not let you cast it unless you have 2 cognition on your bar. But once you cast it, it doesn't take payment until after the canticle has been cast. So in order to cast a canticle for free, I need to make sure I'm at 2 cognition, but then my bar fills to full, then I lose 2 where it takes payment. Not the end of the world, but quite annoying. If you're taking payment at the end, then let me cast the darn thing with no cognition on my bar, since as it stands, it doesn't end up costing me 2 cognition, it costs me 4. 2 which gets wasted on the cast, then 2 spent for payment. Anyway, I just put gain cognition canticles on my bar, and suddenly that's another free bar refill. Heck, there's a secret quest line you can do, and the reward is a canticle that refills all unit health and all cognition. Not to be confused with the tech tree skill, which lets you heal all your units for 1 cognition. It made it so that short of a one-shot, no one on my team could ever die. And it's broken. But that's not the problem in my view. In XCOM, I could essentially one-shot enemies near the end, and it didn't feel like a slog like it does here with Mechanicus, and there's one reason why. And that's the gameplay loop. Mechanicus is deeply flawed, and I'm going to use XCOM to explain how. So generally in all games, you need to have your moments of excitement with moments of downtime. Total Warhammer, you have giant battles, but when it's done, you manage your cities, train troops, build things, maybe conduct some diplomacy. XCOM, you go out for an abduction mission, then come back to base, build new rooms, conduct new research, train new troops, build new weapons, and give yourself some downtime managing your base before going back out. Mechanicus does not have this. You go out and do a mission, and based on difficulty, you do anywhere from 1 to 5 fights. Then you come back to your ship, level up your units, and that's it. You go back out and do it again. You can look at your unlocked tech and improvements, but can't actually do anything. You spend 20 to 40 minutes doing fights, then have maybe 2 minutes of downtime leveling someone up, giving them a new weapon, and that's all there is to it. It's draining and made it so that I couldn't play for long periods of time. XCOM constantly made me say one more turn because I'd be a day or two away from unlocking a new weapon I wanted, but then a mission would pop up, so I'd at least want to get access to that gun. Then I'd finish the mission, get my gun, but then I'd want to go on a mission to try it out, and oh man, it turns out that my generator room just finished building. Now I want to make a satellite room so I can launch more satellites to decrease panic, and it bounced wonderfully between them all. Aside from leveling, all that Mechanicus has are the dungeon type missions, and they're all designed to drain you mentally. So quick sidebar, I really like XCOM 1, but not so much XCOM 2. I have 322 hours in 1, whereas 2 I beat it once then never played it again, so I only have 47 hours in it. And there's one reason for that. Time limits. Everything in XCOM 2 has time limits. Every mission gives you a set amount of turns to finish, and it rushes you and dictates the way you play, and I despise that. Sometimes I may want to rush forward. Sometimes I may want to creep forward with snipers on Overwatch. Let me play my way. In fact, XCOM 1 does have missions where you're forced to rush, where you have a set amount of turns before bombs go off. They even have one of the best missions in the game where you can call in an airstrike, then have to run away and escape while infinite enemies spawn in. It can be fun, but it's interspersed with missions that let you take your time. And here's where I get into the worst timing mechanic of all time, the awakening meter. So allow me to explain. The Necron tomb world is waking up. As we explore the tombs, it awakens more and more Necrons. This is reminiscent in a way to XCOM 1 Panic as well as XCOM 2 Alien Preparedness. The difference lies in the fact that there's no way to reduce the awakening meter. Once it hits 100%, you are forced into the final battle regardless of whether you want to or not. Well, okay, how much does it go up by? And here's where it sucks. It depends. See, each mission has you go through rooms. There could be nothing in there could be glyphs, or there could be events. Now there's also an awakening meter in missions, and each full bar filled increases how hard the mission is. It can lead to you fighting more Necrons, having Necrons revive quicker, and it's a great mechanic. The problem is that the number of bars filled translates to how much awakening you get on the world map. So each room you enter fills the bar by 2 pips, and it takes 5 pips to fill a bar. Meaning that for each 3 rooms you enter, you've increased your awakening by 1%. Now you can reduce it. In battles, if you destroy consoles, you can reduce the bar by 2 pips. In addition, you can get extra fights, which are shown by red enemies in rooms, which I believe appear once awakening has reached 50%, and if you beat them, then you get rewards, which includes reducing the awakening meter in mission, usually by around 4 pips. Each full round of combat increases awakening by 1 pip, which means that so long as you win the mission in 3 turns or less, you've got a net decrease, which is nice. But you can also get unlucky. Each room event you encounter gives you a choice between 3 choices. Generally 2 are bad and 1 is good. These bad events can be anything from losing cognition points, having units get damaged, or increasing awakening. The game has 58 missions total with DLC, and by the time I'd completed around 20 of them, my awakening meter was sitting at over 50%. By my current play, I would not be able to see all the missions and complete the character quest lines before I hit 100%. Now with hindsight and my overpowered characters, I know that I didn't really need to worry. I beat the final boss at 77% awakening because I finished most missions without filling a single bar. But that's with hindsight. As I was playing, I felt dread because I couldn't stop myself from gaining 2 to 4% awakening per mission and felt like I was spiraling downward. And even if I did well in battles, I could get completely ruined in random events by getting unlucky and getting increased awakening. And don't even get me started on boss battles where they're designed to make you take a guaranteed minimum of 3% awakening. So I resorted to following a guide. On Steam, there's an amazing mission guide that will tell you the results of every room choice. And I gladly followed it because my goal was to play the missions that were made. I'm not playing a roguelike where if I lose I've only lost 15 minutes or an hour of progress. This is a full turn-based game where if I lost, I had no way to reduce World Awakening and would lose my full 20 hours of progress. And I had no problem with the randomness, so long as they only punished me in mission. take away my health, reduce my initiative, take away my cognition points, but when the randomness started affecting my actual world awakening, I wasn't having fun, so I stopped interacting with the system and just followed the guide. Yes, it meant I could see all the good options, but honestly, so what? I wasn't having fun regardless. I wasn't role-playing what do I do, I was simply trying to figure out which option wouldn't cripple my run. Even worse, it created a playstyle where the best action to take for any mission was to rush the mission objective rooms, don't explore. Every room explored is 2 pips of awakening. Events give you a 67% chance of something bad happening. Just rush. The core of the game, the missions, became something to rush through and avoid because there's next to no incentive for the player. Now, I ended up with more leveling materials that I would have had otherwise thanks to the guide, but honestly, even if I had half the total amount, all of my units would still have been overpowered. And again, that's not a bad thing. In XCOM, my units were overpowered too, but XCOM also limited the tech trees so that you couldn't get tons of skills, whereas Mechanicus doesn't. You can keep leveling in trees as long as you want. And that's fine, except for a few things. First, the maps are on average way too small. Near the end, you can have a full complement of 6 tech priests as well as 6 robots with you. On average, you may face around 6 enemies per battle. It's way too easy to get to and kill enemies. It doesn't help that the enemy variety isn't that good. In XCOM, you start with small, weak enemies with 3 hit points, then end up facing giant robots with 25 hit points. Enemies scale with players. Unfortunately, that doesn't really happen here. There's a lot of enemy variety which is great, but they all have roughly the same amount of health, so battles become boring. I fought the last boss mission 4 times, and each time I killed him in 1 round without even getting all of my 6 tech priests to get a turn. And it wouldn't be so bad if the battles weren't a slog. I laid out that the maps are too small, the enemies too weak, and if the battles were fun and exciting it wouldn't be that bad, but they aren't. XCOM gave you tactics through sight lines, flanking, and cover systems, as well as corresponding percentages to hit. In Mechanicus, if they're in range of your weapon and generally not behind a wall, you hit 100%. No cover, no tactics. And when cognition points are no longer a factor, as well as being able to full heal your team every turn, you just run across the map and spam every weapon you have. You run on autopilot, you aren't making decisions, you're barely playing the game and it's boring. I couldn't play more than 2 or 3 missions per session because I was bored. And I shouldn't have been, because my tech priests were awesome. I loved being able to call down mechs who torch stuff with fire, or firing lasers non-stop. But there's no meat. Nothing to sink your teeth into. Just clicks. No thought. In XCOM you get 2 actions. Mechanicus, you get infinite. So here I'm going to show you the final mission for one of the quest lines. My job is to activate or destroy all the consoles. Because I have infinite use with cognition points, I can literally just use cognition to let me move forward and back across the entire map. I can move to every single console, which then triggers the next objective, which is to escape. Except, escaping is just going back to where I started, and since I'm literally on my first unit of my first turn, I can just run back and I win. The end. And some of these objectives are odd. Sometimes they'll tell you to move somewhere, and once you get there, the objective changes to kill all enemies, in which case, why not just say I have to kill all enemies? What was the point of moving? It gets to a point where once again there are no tactics. With slight exceptions like the mission I just showed, it's just faster to always kill everything, especially since it's all done in 1 turn. In fact, my initial plan coming in was to have my first unit activate all the consoles, turn 1, then start focusing on killing units afterwards, but it turns out I didn't need to. I will say that at least boss fights are generally fun and unique. The one exception was a mission where you get arbitrarily blocked by a laser field, and every turn it turns off and you can move forward before being blocked by the next one. You're supposed to leapfrog your way forward until you reach the boss, but luckily with one of the tech trees I just called down mechs on top of the boss and killed him. I did keep moving my tech priest forward a turn at a time, but he died before they even got close to him. But Grim, that's your fault for playing that way. Which, fair. But it was also more fun. Calling down mechs anywhere on the map was fun. And more importantly, I was in a boss fight, which meant I was getting at minimum 3% World Awakening, and every turn getting another pip on the bar. I literally couldn't move forward if I wanted since the game was blocking my progress. I know I'm extremely negative about the flaws, but I do want to say that for the first 20 hours I had a lot of fun. And it's possible that if I didn't want to complete all the quests, I could have gone for the final boss who appeared for me at around 54% Awakening and could have had a challenging fight. But that's not the point. I wanted to do the missions. I wanted to play more. It's just that the game failed not by making Tech Priest too strong, but by failing to create maps and enemies that could scale with player difficulty. Again, XCOM gives you larger and larger maps and ships to explore with patrolling enemies. For the most part, what you see in Mechanicus is what you get, except having a few enemies pop up mid-battle here or there. Also, stop tying World Awakening to missions. I want to explore the full dungeons. Don't punish players for that, even if it fits thematically. Gameplay comes first, because if your game fails to entertain, people won't play it. Why would you create a system that punishes players for interacting with your dungeons and trying to experience content? Your goal should never be to not get players to explore areas. At the end of the day, I really like Mechanicus. I hope that they found success and they can improve on what they've created. I just worry that they'll take people saying tech priests are too powerful to heart and gimp them. Having a bunch of fun builds to make is the ideal. People will replay your game just to try new builds. You just need to find ways to increase the threat of your enemies to scale with these fun units so that the game isn't trivialized. I picked the game up on sale for around $11 and it was money well spent. If I paid the full $33 for it, however, I may have been more sour on the game. If it interests you, I do recommend picking it up. Just know that it isn't like XCOM at all. But that's all I've got for today. If you made it this far, congrats. And if I get a single comment on this video, I will make a video for every book or series I've read in the past 6 months. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.